A lot of folks, they come to conferences like this, they see the cool new toy, the shiny object on the shelf. They want to have it. They got to have it. Or your senior manager comes in and says, hey, our competitor's using this. We got to use this to stay competitive. It's like, no, you just need a shiny toy to market, which has its own value, but it's operation. Everything should be focused on the field. How do we become better builders? Whatever we use needs to make us better builders and be better for our clients.
Welcome to Built Different, a podcast featuring teams, technology, and trendsetters who are changing the way that we build. I'm Grant Hagen.
And I'm Brian Vizarreta.
And we welcome you to join a community obsessed with questioning the status quo,
creating cultures of innovation,
and equipping everyone with powerful tools to quite simply build different.
Well, welcome back to the Built Different podcast. Joining with Brian Vizarreta, I am your host, Grant Hagen. Thank you all again for joining in with us for episode 6. If you are wondering why we are wearing some fun Hawaiian gear, if you're tuning in and watching us, we have some really fun stuff that we're going to be talking about in this episode that relates to that. So just really fun to be able to talk about that. Anthony with Turner is going to be joining in with us for this episode. Brian, what excites you about this conversation that we got to have with Anthony?
We really just got into it, on how large projects adopt technology differently than smaller projects, and what you can learn from both and what translates, and just kind of prescribing. There's never like a one size fits all solution for every single project. So it was just great to hear his lessons learned along the way.
Yeah, for sure. We hear that all the time from folks is like, how do I translate this stuff from other companies and from big jobs to small jobs? And so that is the exact topic for this episode. And so we just want to thank you again for tuning in with us. Great conversation ahead. Thank you all again so much for the feedback that you've given us so far. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will see you next time. We are joined with Anthony from Turner. This is going to be a great conversation. And also my good pal over there, Brian V. We are going to have a lot of fun talking about some great stuff that Anthony's doing with Turner Construction. We'll have you kind of intro, give a little bit about your background, what you do at Turner, and then we're going to get into some good stuff. We're really going to focus on how large scale projects can ultimately really help and provide a ton of value to maybe some smaller projects. We've been talking with a lot of different customers here about just the differences in job types and job sizes and job personnel, but what's the common thread that can connect them? And we're going to talk about a little lessons learned and some things along the way, kind of on that camp. But this is going to be a really good episode. I'm really excited to talk through some of this stuff. Turner's been a great customer for Drone Deploy for many years, big customer on the construction side. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But without further ado, Anthony, would love to hear a little bit about your background, how you kind of got into construction, what you're doing over at the Turner land these days. And yeah, let's turn it over to you.
Well, I will say I've got a pretty non-traditional background, yet traditional in some senses. As a young high school kid, my passion actually was to go into musical theater as a major. Somewhere along the line, I got introduced to construction management as a degree in architecture. Ended up going to the University of Cincinnati. Go Bearcats.
Come on.
When I got there, I was chasing the architectural engineering degree. Found out that for an extra year of school, you can go for a dual major with the construction management as well.
Oh, nice.
So co-ops and everything is part of that, which is fantastic. Really encourage co-op programs, paid internships. While in college, I joined the Army National Guard.
Oh.
So spent 12 years in the Guard. Background there was IT, signal systems, military police. So went through all that. Kind of got deployed about 3 years into college. Spent 2 years over in Germany, NATO headquarters. Came back for my final 3 years, which was a good break because I discovered some good times in college this first 3 years.
Yeah.
So kind of got my head back on my shoulders and kind of put myself back on the right path. Finished my last 3 years, put the resume out there, got picked up by Turner. And then as far as how it all came together, in college I had a degree, a certificate in Geographic Information Systems, GIS. So get to Turner, they find out that, hey, this is a young field engineer straight out of college. He knows how to use Revit.
Yeah.
Let's make him be this new BIM thing. Let's have him be the coordinator.
And this would have been what year?
2010. So I became the BIM coordinator on the first BIM project within Columbus, Ohio.
Which is where you're at, correct?
Which
Columbus.
Still there. Yeah. Great place, Columbus, Ohio. Kind of took off from there. Started doing BIM coordination. They brought me out of the field, put me back into the office, said, hey, let's put you in pre-con, put you in estimating. Let's figure out how we can use models to help the estimating and pre-construction process. So did some sales support, did some quantity takeoff, all super early before we had all the bells and whistles and tools we have today. A lot of manual brute force efforts, and then kind of just slowly worked my way into the VDC Manager role for our Ohio region, and has been sitting there ever since until about 2017. And that's when a big data center client came calling. They wanted to push the envelope, wanted to go kind of full scale, all out VDC and BIM. So they decided, hey, who do we got in our office that can really take this on and run with it? And they pulled me in. We built the team, reality capture, coordination, work in place tracking, kind of building of what we've learned over the years, and really built a really good team out there doing some really innovative stuff.
Man, you are selling your guys' team short. Really good is very modest, and it's an incredible team. You guys, I've had a privilege to come out to the Columbus office and interact with more of your guys' team. Let's not forget to mention, I mean, to talk about fun, Brian's over here in his Hawaiian shirt, which, I mean, really, I'm so jealous. That's why I keep bringing it up. I got to go find one and steal one from him. But I mean, you guys, your job office is called the Beach House.
Yes.
I mean, come on. Like, how awesome is that?
Yeah, the culture on that project is really, it's second to none. They've taken on of this one team approach, one team effort between the design team and the client. We have a co-located office space. We decided we're going to be there for 5-10 years with all the work coming through, multiple builds, multiple data centers, about to break ground on another big one. So they decided, why have a trailer complex?
Yeah.
We're going to be here for a while. So they went ahead and designed a pre-engineered metal building. The client's got their section of it. We got our section. Trade partners are in there as well. All working in the same space, very collaborative.
It really is. It feels like walking into a job site office of the future. I mean, when you talk about how it's being collaborative and it's its own separate space, I mean, you can just, I don't know, when you walk into some buildings and some offices, you can just tell. You're like, man, this is a different vibe and a different feel, which, man, we could do a whole nother episode on that. We were talking in a later episode about the value of a job site culture and just how much that plays into it, and how do you put an ROI on that. And that's a great topic in its own self. But what I'm curious, Anthony, to kind of get involved in and kind of hear your perspective is, and we hear this a lot, especially at construction conferences, even just in general, about the idea of larger jobs, big jobs, let's call them mega jobs just for clarity's sake. And when I could say mega jobs, I'm going to put them in the category of $750 million plus, $1 billion plus projects, multi-year, more than 3, 4, 5 year type jobs. Oftentimes, those are data centers, stadiums, big jobs that have a long tenure. How do those jobs help the smaller jobs at Turner? I mean, and again, let me clarify, smaller jobs, let's just say anywhere in that realm of under 100 million, under 75 million. Those aren't in small jobs by any means, but they definitely have a smaller feel to them in comparison. I really want to dive into lessons learned that you guys have had on the mega jobs, how that's translated and applied down to smaller jobs, and what ways you've kind of found some really key lessons learned in that process, because that's a big gap between those two types of projects. And oftentimes it's a gap between companies as well. Like we're at conferences and we hear all these presentations and we're like, man, that's not my company. It's not my job. It's not my type of project that I'm working on. And there's kind of an immediacy of, that can't translate. But that's not true. I mean, you guys have proved how that can be, where you can share that value. That's the premise. That's what I'm really curious to know. Brian, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you kind of hit it on the head, where how are you using these larger jobs to learn on what you're going to do for across the company, like standardization? Like, what are you looking at for the entire company?
So our office is dealing with everything from your very small jobs, which could run by half a person, a quarter of a person, kind of run the project, all the way up to a project in the multiple billions where you have a staff of 75 to 100 people on that project, give or take. So really what this has allowed us to do is it's created a pseudo R&D sandbox to try things. We've got a client who wants to push the boundaries, wants to push things forward. They're very open to the idea of technology and using technology to change the industry. They want to be seen as a leader of construction, a leader of technology and construction. So they've worked with us. When we find something we think has value, we'll pitch it up there and say, hey, we think we got to spend a little bit of money up front. Got to get that little seed fund in there, sweeten that pot to help offset that cost, to get that big thing, that high dollar value thing in there, so we can start testing it, start trying it. We've got a use case. We've got an ROI identified. We got to prove it out. And the key there really is selling that initial ROI. A lot of folks, they come to conferences like this, they see the cool new toy, the shiny object on the shelf. They want to have it. They got to have it. Or your senior manager comes in and says, hey, our competitor's using this. We got to use this to stay competitive. It's like, no, you just need a shiny toy to market,
Yeah.
which has its own value, but it's operation. Everything should be focused on the field. How do we become better builders? Whatever we use needs to make us better builders and be better for our clients. And that's really where this specific project has allowed us to kind of shine.
Did you anticipate the kind of sandbox approach that this project was going to help in, or did you kind of fall into it, or does that make sense?
I kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
Like I said, they were looking for somebody who can help fulfill this client's request, their robust requirements. I don't think anybody in the office in the region really understood what it was going to take. I don't think the client understood what they were asking for. I got out there, and it was October of 2017. I remember the month. And they said, hey, the client wants us to coordinate the underground utilities for this site. And I said, okay, what are we looking at? What's our time frame? Well, we're starting to dig dirt today. You want me to install all the utilities for the entire site, and you're starting to install your first piece of utility today? We're 3 months behind already. 3 months behind. So it was a slog. Got to get out of the ground. Got to get moving. Got to just keep picking away at it. So it was just me on this project. And then the client said, hey, we want to do reality capture. And I said, what do you mean you want to do reality capture? What does that mean? It's like, we don't really know, but we're willing to pay for a scanner for the project, and we want you to do reality capture and do virtual reality while you're at it.
And that's what they thought reality capture was at the time. Grab a scanner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. we talked a little bit about that with some other folks, is like, how do you describe what reality capture is? And
exactly.
Yeah. Keep going.
And as we have learned, it is much more than just, hey, go buy a scanner.
Yeah.
And it involves multiple tools, multiple levels of scanners, multiple levels of accuracy and precision and software and a whole slew of things that it can be above and beyond just getting a scan.
Yeah. But you bring up a really good point, right? Like, the best place to start is with a problem that you are trying to solve, and then you can prescribe what levels of accuracy are going to be necessary for that, right? Like, if you just want to communicate what an above ceiling condition looks like, a photo could work. If you want to coordinate new mechanicals, you're going to have to scan, right? Like,
yeah, it comes down to what level of information do you need? So in our case, we didn't really have a use case we didn't have a problem to solve. We had a technology and said, hey, go find a use for this. And so we started looking at it, and initially the client said, hey, we want a digital representation of our building, but we also want you to validate the accuracy of the installation. We want to make sure that all this money we're paying for coordination is being utilized.
Sure.
We're making use of it. Which is a change. It's a change to the industry. It's just a change to our trade contractors to understand what we're doing and to get them to buy into the process. So we kind of started working through some use cases, and we're still to this day, we're learning, where we now have, I think, 3 scanners on site at the time, in addition to the Spot with a scanner. But we've got 2 total stations. We got GPS units. So we got a whole team of people now, five reality capture professionals working on our team out there.
I love how when I visited your guys' job, you had these like kind of almost badges right above the different teams. And I love that the badge for your guys' team was VDC/reality capture. Like, I think that just kind of speaks a lot to the value that it is with these other ideas of virtual design and construction. A question I asked earlier to some folks was, so client comes to you, hey, we want to do reality capture. We don't know what it is. We don't know where it can be helpful. How do you educate them on the different types of reality? Like Brian mentioned it too, like, hey, based on accuracies and needs, but like, there's a whole gamut of what reality capture is, from a 360 photo to a scanner and everything in between, ground, air, all that. How do you kind of go about that education piece, not only internally for folks to see that value, but then also externally to clients that are maybe interested in it?
So one thing we learned throughout the process is a scanner is not always the solution. It's not the end all be all. And what you're trying to validate, it all comes down to validation. What are you trying to validate? What's the end goal of what you're trying to do? If you're trying to capture massive amount of information, or an entire space, multiple systems, scanner is fantastic. If you're trying to capture where is this sewage line going in the ground out on the site in the middle of a 330 acre site, do you really need to scan it? Or do you really need to capture points at locations? Because that concrete pipe is not going to move or bend halfway through the run.
Or from the air.
Exactly.
And it's like, hey, I want to do this across the entire site. Right?
Exactly. So it's a point-to-point kind of thing. You just got to capture the key points, the key change of directions, whether it's from the air, from a total station, GPS, whatever. And it's faster to do that.
Yep.
But you got to make sure the process is in place to be able to support that. And so it's trying to find the right tool. It's really about, what's your problem? What's your outcome you're trying to achieve? And then it's, okay, let's take a step back. What tool is most cost effective? What tool is the quickest to capture the information? And to what level of accuracy do you need?
Yep.
If your duct bank or your storm pipe is going to be, if your trade partners can't install it within 12 inches or 6 inches or 2 inches or 1 inch, why rely on a tool that's going to give you 1/16 inch of accuracy?
Yeah.
You don't need that necessarily.
And the best part about that is that's translatable $1 billion job, $10 million job.
100%.
That should be the process on anything. I'm curious, are there 2 or 3 things that stand out that have been the most translatable down to smaller jobs? We've been talking about this a little bit, but like, what are kind of the things that rise up that you can think of?
So proper photo documentation, things like in-wall photos. We started off with the need for, hey, we're going to scan the in-wall stuff. It's like, well, why do you need to scan the in-wall stuff? Well, we got to compare it to the model. Well, we're not modeling the 1 inch conduit in the wall because it's just too much and too small. So we've got nothing to compare it against. So if we can't use the scan to compare it against the model, why are we spending the time to scan it? Well, we got to know where it's at. Okay, well, if we have a photo of that conduit and everything in the wall, and you have reference points where you can take the photo and align it to that wall in the field and say, okay, between this point and this point, now I know where all the studs are at. I know what cavity that conduit's in.
Right.
Yeah, stud finder, beep, beep, there's my cavity. This is where I got to cut.
Yeah.
That's as much as you need. So everybody's got a camera. You don't need a 360 camera. You just need to have a 2D camera, and everybody's got one in their pocket in their phone now.
Yeah.
So by using location-based photos and having a plan of capturing those photos on a very rigid and regimented basis, you can produce a map of photos of everything in the wall. And now if you got to go back and do rework, it's a great turnover deliverable for the client. It takes minimal effort because as contractors, we should be documenting our construction progress, documenting the work. It takes 5 seconds out in the field, take that photo. But if you take it in the right place and take it meticulously, you have a product that the client's going to value, whether they're buying it from you or not. If you already have the system in place, you have that platform in place, you come out the hero the first time that FACOP needs to go find something. You're the hero for your company when you find it's a leak and you got to go find that pipe.
Preach that. Couldn't be more true. So progress documentation, let's bucket that as like, hey, easily transferable, big job or small job. What other ones kind of come to mind?
I would say that drone photography is fantastic because you can quickly capture information about the site. The frequency of it is the question mark about what you got to do. But on a lot of projects, even if you're doing paving, a grading and paving of a parking lot, we used it for documenting the grading of a soccer field that we were doing kind of as a pro bono thing for a client versus having to go in and trying to survey the topography, getting just enough information. Don't go way overboard. Don't go get your 16th inch of tolerance, but enough to show what that grade is going to be. And because you're doing that, you're already capturing weekly work in place. We fly once a week. So it's like, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're taking a process we've had before, using a new technology that gives you better, more consistent, more accurate results. So drone photography to me, in replacing the construction progress photos, aerials, it's a slam dunk on any project.
What are your thoughts, your personal opinions, nothing representative of Turner's thoughts as a whole, on, the drone deployment structured site acquisition? I mean, where does that kind of go in your mental space? Like, where do you think there's opportunity there?
So it's funny. We were down here 4 weeks ago at another big industry conference, and I was chatting with some folks, and we were talking about, I believed at that time that the whole 360 photo documentation sphere, that whole
sphere, I like what you did there.
There you go. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But pun well received. It's ripe for picking. It's at that inflection point where they're starting to get industry adoption. We're starting to see that plateau, that value proposition really being hit. And that's when the big companies come in and they start acquiring. And I mentioned it to the construction site reps that, hey, you've got a really good terrestrial floor plan based platform that people just intuitively will use. But we're doing these other things. We're doing scans, we're doing VR, we're doing aerial stuff. It would be great to be able to tie this stuff together. at the same time we were talking to Drone Deploy and saying, hey, you guys got a great aerial platform, but you're getting into that terrestrial photo realm, and your interface just isn't that good for that kind of stuff. You're doing video walks, but not static. I prefer the static over the video walks, higher quality imagery. I can get people to do the same thing very repetitively.
Yep.
So it'd be great if you just partnered up with somebody and trying to overhaul your entire system.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I was not aware, but the conversation was happening already in the back end.
It's as if you predicted
It's nice.
this merge of these two companies.
But yeah, so it was caught me by surprise when the announcement was made. It was not the partnership I thought that was going to happen, but it's a really good partnership.
Yeah.
Especially around some of the more innovative developments that are happening.
Talk about that. Surprise in not the one that you thought was going to happen. Curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Honestly, I thought that Autodesk was going to make the first move.
Wow.
The first play,
Okay, cool.
just because they're moving into that space.
With
rebooting
Recap
product
and
management.
other reality capture platform parts of
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
They bought the Wild, brought VR.
Oh,
and
sure. I see
Integration
what
of
you're saying.
VR into their BIM 360 platform, the
Yeah.
cloud-based documentation. It just feels like it'd be a good space to have some kind of photo documentation
Yeah,
platform
sure.
to tie into it.
Sure. No, that's great. I thought you were going to answer that very differently. So no, and yeah, I agree. I think that is something which is really interesting to see for sure on the Procore end, for sure on the Autodesk end of these two platforms really supporting reality capture in a way of like, hey, we obviously can iframe into Procore. We can do different things with Autodesk Build in that platform to our construction cloud. And yeah, it is interesting to see some of that. I'm really curious to hear from you on, you guys have the benefit of being a Drone Deploy customer and being a Struction Site customer. What would you want to tell a Struction Site customer about Drone Deploy? And then I would flip it of, what do you want to tell a Drone Deploy customer about Struction Site? Because you guys have the very unique situation that you're in, that you're very heavily invested in both platforms, but we know that may not be the norm with other customers that may be coming at it from just a Struction Site end of like, drones, why do I need that? Or Drone Deploy and saying, I don't know why that's important.
Sure.
Give me some of your perspective around those types of customers and the questions that they should be encouraged by with you having used both platforms.
Sure. I would say that from the Drone Deploy customer looking at Struction Site and saying, what is that for? It is the excitement of the current platform is the static 360, stationary 360, stationary 2D, and comparison to the model. I think those features is what really provides the backbone of Struction Site as a platform.
Yeah, that's great. And then Struction Site, you should get excited about using Drone Deploy because
you're already in the world of 360 and 2D photos, and this allows you to get that eye in the sky of the entire site.
Yeah.
To me, it's a lot easier to sell Struction Site users on Drone Deploy. It's just taking what they already know about the interior space and taking it out to the site, out to the air.
With a big, interesting, and we could not miss on this point, but I don't want to use drones. I don't want to own a drone. I don't want to start a drone program. Why should I be excited about Drone Deploy?
So Turner does not fly our own drones. It's a company policy. It comes down to a risk issue. The drone falls out of the sky for no reason of our own. It happens. Batteries can die. Falcons love punching drones out of the sky. It happens. I've seen it happen.
Throw the clip of the Falcon video.
Exactly. If you're flying over top of active work, which we shouldn't be, but if a drone falls and hits something, our insurance, we are not aircraft operators. Our construction insurance policies don't cover airstrikes. They don't cover aircraft crashing. So, and if you hit a person, that's a bad day for everybody, including that person, because I don't care. They're not coming after the individual. They're coming after the company. So insulating us, we've got big pockets, which means we're a big payout if it happens.
So are you telling me that Turner doesn't fly a single drone, but uses Drone Deploy?
Correct.
So
the way we get about that is we do have a drone policy and a agreement with Drone Deploy where we can request a flight, and Drone Deploy will actually work through their network of drone pilots to provide that flight for us.
And this is what I want people to hear. I obviously know and have seen this, but this is where I think there's going to be a big caveat for folks of some Struction Site users being,
I don't want to get into that space, or I want to, but you're telling me I got to go get certified. You're telling me I got to go get equipment. You're telling me I got to go learn this other world that I'm so busy on the inside. Tell me about the excitement that you see for Struction Site users and being to tap into the data on demand that Turner massively uses.
Yeah. And again, this goes from big projects versus small projects. On the big project, we've got a third-party pilot that we contract with directly. There are guys that fly week in, week out. We hold their contract directly. On a smaller project, you don't got the budget to do that, but we've got a set fee structure of 60-minute flight costs X, a 120-minute flight costs
within
X.
drone deploy.
Within drone deploy. So the whole ordering system, ordering the flight, mapping out what the flight coverage area needs to be, that's all done by our users in the system. We hit the request to get that drone demand feature, and drone deploy will get the pilot out there. They will get that flight going. The pilot takes care of all that information. We don't got to worry about it as a contractor. Our engineer, our superintendent doesn't need to be a pilot, doesn't need to have a license.
And the theme of this episode is big job to small job. I mean, that translates, and you can do that same type of experience that you were used to on a big job down to a small job. And man, we could throw up some statistics and talk through the amount of flights that Turner does on data on demand through drone deploy. And it's incredible. I mean, you've obviously gotten to experience that.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about your thoughts.
So the growth, the ability to remove that roadblock of Turner, you can't fly a drone. And we can say, all right, you can't fly a drone, but here's the resource to go and get that drone flight, and having that standard pricing rate so we can plan and budget. So there's nothing worse than seeing, I want to use a tool, but there's no money in the budget for it.
Yeah.
So we can have that conversation up front. We can budget for it. Okay, you've got so many flights to do, and we'll push it out there. And the fact that I don't need to be the one to do all the work. It's just, hey, here's a tool. Here's a platform.
Yeah.
You want a flight? Here's what it costs.
And it's almost, well, it's not almost, there's some data that could show it's almost safer. I mean, or it's almost more efficient. I mean, you could line up and name anything along those lines of why data on demand could be a really exciting thing for Struction Site users to get excited about within drone deploy. I just think the education piece around it may not be there. And I think that's why we're wanting to continue to promote, talk, put your voice out there more than ours. I mean, you guys are the end user of the value that it brings. And
if a company is open to flying their own drones, they've got that option too. So you kind of got your three options. You can fly your own, you can bring your own contractor to fly for you, or you can go through that drone deploy network.
Yep.
Get three options.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, the unified reality capture idea is still alive. Big job, small job, doesn't matter. Man, really great stuff. We are in between you and some drinks and you and having some fun here on the expo hall floor. But Anthony, super fun. This is just, I think, one of those opportunities to talk through relating big job to small job, getting people excited about the lessons learned that can be applied. Brian, anything you'd want to add before we close up?
No, I'm just grateful that, we can share this knowledge, because very frequently we hear from people at smaller companies saying, I can't do this because I don't have those type of budgets, and they don't get to kind of get those firsthand lessons learned directly, like in a scenario like this. So thank you very much for doing that.
No worries. We're happy to share. What the rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
So whatever we can do to push the industry forward, we're always happy to step out there, have those conversations.
Yep. Anthony, this is super fun. Always enjoy getting to spend time with you guys, the Turner team, talking through some of these things. And to the listeners, I hope this has become a helpful resource for you. I appreciate how open you guys are about just some of these challenges, the topic, just in general, because I think, again, you said it well, rising tide brings all the ships up, and we really do want to help promote that. Anthony, great talking with you. Built different. We will see you on our next episode.
Make sure to subscribe to Built Different on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Let's build this community together.